So first and foremost, I want to say that this is a brave space. You guys may be familiar with the concept. You may not be familiar with the concept. But, you know, back in the day, they developed this idea of a safe space. The LGBTQ community developed that so that people knew that these were safe spaces that you could come to. But the problem with the connotation with the phrase safe space is that it indicates that there are places that aren't safe. And that may have well have been the case back in the day. And the other thing about safe spaces, while the name doesn't imply that, people got the connotation that like, this was a place where we were accepting of all ideas and we didn't really question anything. It was just okay. Here, we're gonna challenge some ideas. We're gonna ask questions. We're gonna probe, and we're probably gonna say some things that may make you uncomfortable, and that's okay. And if you have questions about that, we're here to ask those questions, and we're here to engage in that process. And the hope being that we can come to a better understanding as individuals and as people. And when we challenge our ideas and we challenge our assumptions, that's our brain growing, us growing as individuals. And so hopefully we can do some of that. And I say that because we're gonna immediately dive into trauma. Because first and foremost, this pandemic's been traumatic, and it's affected all of us. And it's affected all of us differently. You know, if you've been cooped up at home by yourself, I mean, you've got to be going stir crazy. Some of you have been cooped up in a home with multiple people. And some of those people may drive you a little crazy. Some of those people may drive you more crazy than you thought that they would at the beginning of this pandemic, you know? People are realizing that their marriages aren't as strong as they were. People are realizing that their marriages are way stronger than they ever thought they could be. Some people are like, oh my God, if I see fingers crawl underneath my bathroom again, I don't know what I'm gonna do if you have small children at home. You know, it's affected all of us. It's affected your students, but right now we're talking about it's affected you. And this isn't the only trauma that has been in your life. And so right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start a poll, and I'm gonna have you guys answer just 2 quick questions of all of these things that you see on this slide right here. How many of you have been affected by one or more of these? And the next question is, how many of these have affected you? Now, I want you to know that this poll is anonymous. I'm not gonna see the results, so you don't have to worry about that. While you're doing the poll and while I'm trying to get the poll started, I'm gonna share a story about my life to kind of like open up the braveness of the brave space. The only thing I'm gonna see live is how many people have gone ahead and answered the poll. And so, but the story I wanted to share with you guys is I had, a few years ago, I was going through a really traumatic divorce, and I had a friend who was actually, who had an addiction to drugs, and they had asked me to take them to rehab. And so they went to a 90-day rehab facility, and they had asked that I come and visit them. And I said yes, and I was gonna go like 1 or 2 times under this obligatory thing, like, you said you were gonna do that, and you were gonna be there for your friend. But when I went to this facility, before you could meet with the residents, you had to participate in what they called a family group. And so it was basically all of the people who had been impacted by the drugs and alcohol of their family members. And so you met with them and you started hearing these people share their stories. And my divorce was really bad. I lived in a hotel for 6 months. It was really rough on me. And we had a 6-month-old baby at the time. And it was trying, and it was while I was an assistant principal. So, I'm already battling the fact that I'm on the dark side. And so there's all of these things going on, right? And I came to this meeting and I listened to these people who looked so normal and so regular, just like me and you. And they were sharing these unbelievable stories of tragedy, of things that people would do. And I believed while I was going through some of this, like I would like hear this story about this person, and I'm like, man, I couldn't even imagine somebody doing the things that had been described. And then you come in after everybody meets, and then all these other, the residents come in. So you get to see the people that they were talking about. And these people look no different than me and you know, everybody looked the same. And it was such a huge reminder and such a huge relief for me, because I felt like I was carrying this burden of all of this trauma on my own, and that I didn't have anybody that could relate or could understand at all what I was going through. And listening to these stories of these people really kind of made me and helped me realize that I'm not the only one. And while we all have fabulous Facebook lives or Instagram lives, that's not necessarily what's going on, right? So look, 88% of us have dealt with the death of a loved one. You know, all of us, it seems like, or at least the 94% of us, it seems like we've gone through some trauma. 0 people indicated that they had none of those traumatic experiences in their lives. We've had quite a few number at 2, several with 3, 4, and 5 or more. Thank you for taking the opportunity to share those experiences and to talk about that. Traumatic experiences leave their traces on our minds, and they affect our emotional and physical health. At best, we have traces of that with us, that we carry with us everywhere we go. And at worst, we're still enduring that trauma, or can't or haven't yet begun to address the impact of that trauma. The crazy thing is, when you've experienced trauma like that and you have flashbacks, or you have those flashbacks, or you experience that fight or flight that comes from the result of the trauma that you've experienced, what's happening in your brain physiologically is that you're reliving that trauma. So it's like you're experiencing it for the first time. So whatever that trauma is, it's coming back to you, and your brain is literally living through that. And so it's like you're continuing to observe that trauma. I want to share this quick video. You guys are seeing a TED thing right now, right? Okay, just wanted to make sure, because I'm going to share a couple of minutes from this video clip, and then we're going to get into some more. All right.
The adverse childhood experiences study is something that everyone know about. It was done by Dr. Vince Felitti at Kaiser and Dr. Bob Onda at the CDC. And together, they asked 17,500 adults about their history of exposure to what they called adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Those include physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, physical or emotional neglect, parental mental illness, substance dependence, incarceration, parental separation or divorce, or domestic violence. For every yes, you would get a point on your ACE score. And then what they did was they correlated these ACE scores against health outcomes. What they found was striking. 2 things. Number 1, ACEs are incredibly common. 67% of the population had at least one ACE, and 12.6%, 1 in 8, had 4 or more ACEs. The second thing that they found was that there was a dose-response relationship between ACEs and health outcomes. The higher your ACE score, the worse your health outcomes. For a person with an ACE score of 4 or more, their relative risk of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease was 2.5 times that of someone with an ACE score of 0. For hepatitis, it was also 2.5 times. For depression, it was 4.5 times. For suicidality, it was 12 times. A person with an ACE score of 7 or more had triple the lifetime risk of lung cancer and 3.5 times the risk of ischemic heart disease, the #1 killer in the United States of America. Well, of course, this makes sense. You know, some people looked at this data and they said, come on, you know, you have a rough childhood, you're more likely to drink and smoke and do all these things that are going to ruin your health. This isn't science. This is just bad behavior. It turns out this is exactly where the science comes in. We now understand better than we ever have before how exposure to early adversity affects the developing brains and bodies of children. It affects areas like the nucleus accumbens, the pleasure and reward center of the brain that is implicated in substance dependence. It inhibits the prefrontal cortex, which is necessary for impulse control and executive function, a critical area for learning. And on MRI scans, we see measurable differences in the amygdala, the brain's fear response center. So there are real neurologic reasons why folks exposed to high doses of adversity are more likely to engage in high-risk behavior. And that's important to know. But it turns out that even if you don't engage in any high-risk behavior, you're still more likely to develop heart disease or cancer. The reason for this has to do with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the brain's and body's stress response system that governs our fight or flight response. How does it work? Well, imagine you're walking in the forest and you see a bear. Immediately, your hypothalamus sends a signal to your pituitary, which sends a signal to your adrenal gland that says, release stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol. And so your heart starts to pound, your pupils dilate, your airways open up, and you are ready to either fight that bear or run from the bear. And that is wonderful if you're in a forest and there's a bear. But the problem is what happens when the bear comes home every night.
All right. So there's a link to that full TED Talk. It's pretty fascinating. I was really impressed with it. And if you're wondering what your ACE score is, there's also a link to your ACEs score, and it's something that you can take a look at. And to be quite honest with you, in the poll above, most of those were ACEs. Actually, all of those were ACEs. I think there's a couple of extra questions. So that could give some indications to you and to where you're at and what's going on with you. So in the chat right now, I just want you to think about one of these traumatic experiences that you've had, and while you're at your most vulnerable, what was it that you needed in that moment? What was it that you needed from someone else? Someone to replace serenity, peace, someone to talk to, empathy, support, a hug. Somebody wanted to be left alone, understanding, space, guidance, compassion, empathy, hope. Someone to listen, grace, support. A distraction. It all makes sense, right? And so as we go through this, just remember that none of you said that you needed more administration. None of you said you needed more bureaucracy. None of you said that you needed another training. You know, if you need a hug, find someone and get a hug. I hope that you're not home alone and that you can get that. And it's okay. And it's okay to need these things. If you need that distraction, take advantage of it, you know? Hopefully find one that isn't destructive, you know? We play a lot of Fortnite at my house these days. So that's what I utilize. And try to remember that when your students are experiencing these same things, that these are the things that they need from us. You know, I went to a trauma-informed practices training, and I think that was probably the largest takeaway I took from it. You know, we have the answers to what it is that we need. They're inside of us. We don't need to seek a training or an outside thing. We know what people need. We're human. We've been there, and we've experienced that. And we know that people react to trauma differently, and we've got to give people that space. Just like you need that space. And we got to be okay with that. Compassion fatigue. This is a big, lengthy definition of compassion fatigue. I'm not a big fan of reading to you guys because we're adults, we know how to read. But simply put, compassion fatigue is the high cost of caring. It's when you start running on empty and things start happening. And it affects you, and it drains you, and it changes you, and it affects your psyche. Why are we talking about compassion fatigue? Because half of our half of our students have experienced childhood trauma. And those are the kids that are in our classes. 33% of our students have experienced 2 or more types of childhood adversity. 15% of all girls aged 14 to 17 have experienced sexual assault. If you get a classroom of 30, you got 15 girls in there, that's 2 girls in each of your classes. And 60% of students 17 years or younger have been exposed to crime, violence, and abuse. And so you care about your kids, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we need that. And those kids need someone to care for them. But more importantly, you've got to care for yourself. These are all signs of compassion fatigue. You know, I can tell you right now, when I was going through it, I had a lower tolerance for frustration, you know, hypervigilance, hyperarousal, nightmares, flashbacks. If you're complaining a lot more than you're used to complaining, these are all things, signs to be looking out for. You say that, there's a program called the Employee Assistance Program, and it's an opportunity for you to go ahead and get some mental health help. The phone number is there. Grace is going to drop it into the chat. The program, if you're in Riverside County, I believe most schools and districts operate with it. And so you can call and they'll set up a service where you can meet with a therapist on at least for 3 sessions and get some help. You know, mental health is no joke. It's there's a stigma attached to it. We need to beat that stigma back, because life is hard. If it wasn't hard, we wouldn't all be sitting here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a training trying to figure out how we can do this, our job, better, right? So if you need help, please reach out, please get some. Please understand that you're not alone. You know, I mean, we saw in that poll that a lot of us have been through a lot of different things. Hopefully you have a support system in place where you can get some of that help. All right. Social emotional learning. If you guys aren't familiar with SEL, SEL is all about the whole brain, teaching everything, teaching about self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, social skills, and relationship skills. And then mindfulness and checking in and all of these different things. It's great for our students, but it's stuff that we need to engage in for ourselves. And so on this slide, if I was presenting, you could click the link, and Grace is going to also drop it again in the chat. But Corona Norco Unified did a fabulous job of putting together an SEL in action. And so there's just a whole host of things that you can do for self-care. For breathing, self-reflection, you know, activities for you, things you can do at the elementary, things you can do at the secondary level, things to check in with your kids, things that allow your kids to check in, things that allow you to check in, things that are gonna help you get into the right headspace, because this job is hard. It's harder now than it's ever been before. And we need to take brain breaks, and we need to take care of ourselves, because if we don't take care of ourselves, it's kind of like, you know, when you're on that plane and they always tell you to put the oxygen mask on of you first before you help your child, you know, because we're no good to our kids if we're not good to ourselves. All right, Don's gonna get off his soapbox now. We're gonna lighten the mood a little bit. So if you're not familiar with visible learning, I'm sorry for that really, really bad transition. But if you're not great, if you've never heard of visible learning before, Visible Learning is a book produced by John Hattie, Hattie, Fisher, and Frey, talking about a meta study of what works with kids. And so what John Hattie was able to conclude after conducting all these meta studies, so studies of different studies as to what works, if you ever hear him speak, he'll tell you that just about everything works, you know, But like all things, not everything works more. Some things are more effective than other things. You know, a couple of the things that don't work is summer vacation, lack of sleep, suspending or expelling kids, retention, and kids being bored to tears. So those have actually reverse effects. But by simply sitting in your class, your kids are learning and they're going to be getting stuff. And so what we're going to be looking for as we engage over the course of over this process is how do we get to this idea of where our kids are getting more bang for their buck than before. And so a 0.4 effect size is like the average of 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. So anything over 0.4 is like real advancement. So you're really like, if your kids are behind in reading, or they're behind in math, or they're behind in whatever, if they're missing skill sets, you're looking to get into these effect sizes that are 0.5, 0.6, 0.8, because the higher that those effect sizes are, the more ground you're able to help make up. If you're covering at 0.4, you're covering the ground that you would normally cover inside of a school year. Does that make sense? All right, I'm getting a couple of nods. So the cool thing about visible learning that you may not have known about, and I'm sure because some of you guys are probably veterans and have done some reading and have checked this out, is that there is a website where it's the most up to date and it's up to the minute effect sizes in terms of what works and what doesn't work. So we'll click on that. We'll come over here, and it's a searchable database, and it's got everything. So you can see the influences, the domains, the subdomains, the impact on student achievement, the number of meta-analyses, the number of studies, the confidence level of the studies, and then the effect size in terms of what's going on. And then you can sort and go through all of this. You can have it go through and affect all these. You can look at, so what are the teacher domains that can impact on student achievement that are like, and we'll do all positive. And so boom, these are all things. And then you saw it update in real time what that was. So I think that's teacher verbability. And then you can click on that and it'll take you, you actually have to join, and it's free. And this is all you've got to fill out because they just want to know who's using the site. But once you complete that, they'll go ahead and they'll let you see and have access to all of that stuff. I'm not logged in right now, but so I just wanted to point that out to you. And so that's all to say that basically, while you're new to distance learning, you're not new to education. And, you know, so let's focus in on that prior knowledge, because when we can leverage our prior knowledge, that has an effect size of 0.93. So that's more than 2 years growth in 1 year's time. So let's leverage that prior knowledge that we have, and we're going to access that, and we're going to work together, and we're going to see what we can do to get going with that. All right, you guys, I'm thinking I've been talking for a while, and I feel like I have. So we're going to get you guys into some breakout rooms here in a minute. So don't go away. But boundaries and routines for you. You want to keep a dedicated workspace. Obviously, they talk about that. They talk about setting boundaries with those who will be around your workspace. The biggest thing they tell you to do is whatever those boundaries are, set those up. And anyone who's done boundary work, that work is hard work. Like, this is my boundary, don't cross it. And then people always want to walk up to it and cross the line. And then you're gonna be like, no, 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 no. And but not everything needs to be a boundary. And so we got to figure that out. And I always tell people, start with what drives you crazy and then dial it back from there. What is it that I absolutely need from whoever I'm with or whoever's around me during this time period? And how can I dial that back? They always say, and they made this amazing mention in the book to, you know, emergencies always happen. And we want to limit those, barring emergencies, of course, these are things that you never want to interrupt for. I think it's really important that we understand as people that emergencies are relative. Emergencies are very relative. And I got this picture of little fingers crawling up under the bathroom because, you know, I don't know if you've had small kids at home, this was my life every time I went to the bathroom. And I was like, man, can't I just poop in peace? Sorry to be talking about poop so late in the day, but that's what it became. And, you know, they're just kind of creeping there. And so in our life, in our work life, when we're like, this is the boundary, don't cross it, people are going to cross and be like, but it was an emergency. My pencil broke, you know? Or I didn't know which page I was supposed to do next. I'm actually really shocked that I haven't had someone come out yet and ask questions. So hopefully we'll see how relative emergencies are in Dawn's house today. So, but you guys get what I'm saying. So we're gonna do some breakout rooms right now. We're gonna have some conversations talking about your dedicated workspace. And some of you are at school, so this isn't really applying to you, but you're all doing some work from home. I imagine you're not stuck at school all the time. And so what are those boundaries that you need to share with others when you're working from home? And how is that working out for you? So we're gonna answer those questions and you know, share with some best practices or things that have been working for us. And then we're gonna come back. Any questions about that before we go?
Well, I have a question. In your slides,
Yes.
are all those links clickable for later?
Yes. All the slides are clickable for later, and then you're actually gonna get access to a doc that has every single one of those resources.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yep, absolutely. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and send you guys into breakout rooms. Right, so we're all back. Got some smiles on faces, so that's good. Always share with our friends, right? Our colleagues. Let's see, I'm no longer sharing my screen. That's correct, right? So let me go down here. My screen again. You can see everything. There we go. So we talked about that. So the book talks about kind of routines that you can do in terms of maybe 40 minutes a day, exercise 4 days a week. And love in terms of doing something just for you, competence, stepping out of your comfort zone and trying something new, and gratitude, demonstrating your thankfulness. Those are all things that we can engage in. And, you know, 40 minutes of daily exercise 3 days a week for me is chasing down my 5-year-old or my 10-year-old or running around with swords. And sometimes we just got to take that time to make sure that we do something for ourselves. The book really harbors on these ideas of creating morning routines and taking regular hours and scheduling these breaks and ending your day with a routine, really because, you know, the structure, while we talk about how it's good for our kids and how we want to structure our days and how that structure is good for kids, it's good for us too. You know, when we started working from home, the first thing that everything got thrown out the window, you know, like my whole morning routine got changed because I didn't have to get up an hour early. I didn't have to iron a shirt. I didn't have to go into work. You know, my boss will tell you that I don't even do my hair for our morning meetings. You guys got lucky today. I did my hair all nice. And, but you know, like that went straight out the window for me for a long time. And then, you know, there's all those videos of people like making jokes about the coronavirus. And like, when when you go out, you're like, did I take a shower? How long has it been? Right. And, you know, I've since started implementing back routines that I'd long abandoned. And I'll tell you right now, personally, my life has gotten better for it. You'd think initially like, oh man, now you got a little bit more freedom. You can do these things. But those routines kind of ground us and they center us, and they're you know, for lack of a better word, they're, and now I've lost the word that I was going to say. Ritualistic, you know, and those rituals, they help ground us and they help us get centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you back into the breakout rooms. We're going to talk about some of your morning routine options, some break times and some end of day routine options that you already have, and maybe some that you can kind of develop for yourself and steal some ideas from each other. And we're going to go to this Padlet. So Grace is going to drop that link in the chat so that way you all have it and that you can go there and take a look at it. But it's a bit.ly, it's http://bit.ly and DLP routines, all lowercase. And so as you're in there talking with your group, let's go ahead and post those up again, because not one of us is smarter than all of us. And so that way we can kind of have some things to draw from, because eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you that pick one of those things and try that routine for 2 weeks. And if it works, fantastic. Keep it up. Keep doing it. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to lean on I'm a history teacher at heart. And one of my favorite presidents was FDR. And this quote epitomizes why I loved FDR so much. You know, when FDR got elected, we're in the height of the Great Depression. There'd been more people were out of work than ever before, and the country was broken. And the crazy thing is the guy who was president before him, if you had to pick someone to lead us, if you were like, there's going to be a Great Depression, we're going to need a strong national leader, someone who can get things done, you would have picked Herbert Hoover. I mean, Herbert Hoover was the man. He had a long, he had the CV, the curricula vitae, to handle this kind of workload. But his beliefs just didn't, he thought that it was going to be over quickly, and so he didn't do anything, and that kind of languished, and it continued to languish, and he was struck with that paralysis or analysis paralysis. I think we've all experienced it. I know I have, when you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to order off the menu because there's 6,000 options. Or when we're trying to stuck between a decision that we need to make, we're caught between that rock and a hard place. But FDR said, you know, we're going to try something, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, we're going to admit it frankly, and we're going to try something else. But above all, we're going to try something. So I'm going to send you guys back into breakout rooms, and then you're going to have kind of that conversation about what your routines are and what you can do for breaks. And then I hope that you'll take the opportunity and post those onto the Padlet so that way we can see what other people are doing and what other people are talking about, and utilize and steal from our friends. Like I said, not any one of us is smarter than all of us. Certainly not me. So let me go ahead and send you guys right back to where we started. Looks like we're all coming back. Thank you guys. Smiling faces, that's always good. Really love, I mean, look at that. Oh, well, that image is not going to show you anything because that was me taking a picture of the Padlet before you guys had added a whole bunch of stuff to it. But I was going to say, man, that Padlet looks really good. Saw some really cool activities. A lot of people talking about yoga, Sudoku. I saw that small glass of wine that somebody posted a picture of. That was fantastic. You know, the to-do list is always great. You know, and putting some things on there that are easy to cross off. Coffee breaks, rollerblading through campus. That sounds awesome. You know, online shopping. Amazon is dangerous. Amazon is very, very dangerous.
Oh my gosh, I thought I would break Amazon.
Right? Man.
The one thing I have to look forward to every day is, what did I order?
I can just start coming in all the time, and then you're like, man, these people, at least you got to feel like comfortable, like at least I'm employing a lot of people right now because those packages are rolling in at all hours of the day.
Yeah.
Awesome. So hopefully you got some ideas, and you talked about routines that you already have. Hopefully you can pick up a routine and try one of those routines out for 2 weeks. And you know, like I said, if it works, great. Keep that routine up. Keep going with it. If it doesn't work, obviously, you know, that wasn't a good routine for you. And that's okay. We're going to fail at this. We're going to fail at a lot of things in life, you know. I fail a lot. My old boss will tell you that. My current boss will tell you that. And I'm okay with that because we pick ourselves up and we dust ourselves off and we learn from that failure and we move forward, right? So socialization is always important. I think that's why some of us come to these Zoom meetings. I always feel like when I send people into breakout rooms, no matter what the question is, when people come out of those breakout rooms, they're happier. They're happier than before they went in because we get a chance to talk to each other, right? I've got this great, so there's this picture right there of Dr. Seuss, and it says the F in the chat. I don't know if you guys have experienced that yet, but you may start experiencing Fs appearing in your chat rooms with your students. Don't freak out. It's not a bad thing. Do I have any gamers? No? No gamers here? All right. So in video game lore, there was a video game called Call of Duty, and your best friend passes away in the line of duty. And at the funeral, there's a funeral scene, and it tells you that you have to type F to pay your respects to your friend. And so you type F, and then all of a sudden it became a huge thing on Twitch and on on chats, just chats in general. And so you'll see people putting Fs in the chat. And so if you're getting an F in the chat for something that you've said or something you've done, you know, that's a good thing, you know? So just know that if that starts coming and you're like, what in the world? Why are my kids saying F, 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 F? Well, now you know. If you're interested, you can click on that storybook and it'll give you the whole article with the whole rundown as to what that is and where that came from and what video game, if you want to go play it, you know. But just kind of take a minute and throw it in the chat. What are we doing to maintain our connectivity, our social lives, aside from Zooming with Dawn at 5 in the afternoon? Because while you're going to join me today and hopefully tomorrow and maybe next week, you know, that's not enough. Zoom happy hours, nice. What social life? Very true. Girls' night Zoom, that sounds intriguing. Zoom volunteer work, that sounds cool. A lot of Zooming, it seems. Lawn happy hours, nice. Outdoor meetings, because we're allowed to do that now, thankfully. Whoa, quilting, that's cool. Golf, evening walks in the community, talking and texting with friends. Eating. Yeah, you'll notice that the top button on my shirt's not buttoned because I haven't bought new shirts since the pandemic, and I believe that I must have I've put on a few pounds. Somebody told me that COVID weight doesn't count, like COVID calories don't count, but that's not true. I'm finding as I try to put on work clothes. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but somebody lied to me and I want my money back. Awesome. So the big thing here is so that we create a plan for our stress management, we create a plan for healthy eating, we create an exercise plan, and we create a plan for getting regular sleep. We want to do that, but more important than ever is this idea of a commitment partner. Because you can talk about doing those things, we can talk about doing all that stuff, but if we don't have somebody to hold us accountable, it never gets done, right? It's that project at your house or it's that project that you haven't done yet that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to it. But if you don't have somebody been like, hey, so where are you at with that? You know? That's why book clubs work when they do work, because it's like, oh, I gotta get this done because, you know, I gotta go and hang out with 5 other people that actually talk about whatever it is that we're supposed to be talking about, right? And it's that commitment. It's that level of, it's that accountability piece. And I don't mean that in like a negative way, but you know, something that my girlfriend and I do is we talk about, you know, every night we talk about something that made us laugh, something that made us sad. And we share 3 things that we want to get done the next day. And so we talk about that, and we don't always get them done. And when we do get them done, you know, we celebrate and we're like, yes, I knocked out 2 out of 3. And 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? And so, and there are days when we only get 1 out of 3. And there are days when, you know, the world was not as nice as it could have been and we didn't get anything done that we wanted to get done today, right? But then we try it again for tomorrow. And just having somebody to talk to about those things that we said that we were gonna do really helps out. It's been huge for me. And it doesn't have to be your girlfriend, it doesn't have to be your boyfriend, it doesn't have to be your significant other, you know? You know who are really good commitment partners? 5-year-olds. If you've got a 5-year-old at home and you tell them that you're gonna do something, you better believe you're going to get reminded until it gets done. So if you've got one of those laying around, utilize them. They're great for that. Just some suggestions as to what you can do, but really find somebody that you can do that with and check in with them, because that'll help with that socialization piece too. And it can be your friend. It can be that Zoom happy hour with the girls, or with the boys. You know, I just wanted to share with you guys some resources. So school reopening resources this is from RCOE. It's put on by all of us. You'll notice right down on the clip, it shows general resources, leadership, UDL, formative assessment, blah, 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 blah. And then it says science. I want you to know that there are every other subject areas underneath that, including PE, history, social science, arts. We've got it all. So we're really working to make sure that we can provide for you and all of those different things that you're trying to do. Wanted to let you know about those resources. And then we also have remote learning resources that we put together a while back, and we actually try to update those pretty regularly. So again, underneath supporting homeless youth, you'll see again all of the content areas and things like that.